Hi everyone, welcome. Just so that you know, seminar is being recorded. Welcome to How to Succeed in Online Courses. This is a panel with some of our MWCC faculty. Here today, we have Julie Capozzi.
Hi, good morning or afternoon. I think we're into afternoon. I'm full-time psychology, sociology, counseling methods, and department chair of the substance abuse program. And I have a lot to say as we go on with the perspective of online versus a mental mindset of everything combined, what's going on, and throwing all that fears into the new normal. I'll expand on that, but I teach many of my courses online. And we're also, the other thing I'll pursue later is, you know, some of the positive things you have to look at with change besides just what you don't have. You know, the new normal and what can it create for you, particularly with things, you know, not being so synchronous. Asynchronous means you don't have to meet at certain times. Your commute can get, my commute, Carol's commute, you have 2 to 4 hours more a day. Lots of things like that. So I'm here with a positive outlook of facing the new normal. So thank you.
We also have Professor Lara Dowland. Lara?
Hi everyone. So I'm a full-time faculty in biology department. I teach Bio 113, so life science for allied health. I teach AMP1, AMP2, and cell biology course. So quite a variety of science courses. And I am not a native online teacher, so I can help you out with how I transitioned to being online as well.
We also have Professor Lisa Naze.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa and I'm a biology instructor. I teach Bio 113, Bio 109, AMP 1 and 2, and micro. And I too am technology challenged, as Gaurav knows. And so it's taken quite a bit of time of learning. But I have gone places in Blackboard that I never wanted to go. And I'm actually kind of happy for it because I've learned a lot.
Awesome, thank you, Lisa. We also have Professor Carol Reed.
Hi, I'm right here. And in my background is one of our golden retrievers. That's one of our girls. And I've taught at the college for many years, and I teach in a multitude of programs in CIS, medical assisting, office administration. I'm one of the people that is self-taught in technology. It's good for some, not so good for others, but I think the perspective I bring is that because we are in the new norm, we can all benefit from being online. People ask, what's it going to look like a year from now? And when we get, when we get protected with, with shots and everything, I think we're going to see the world of business is going to change. Some of the things that are going on now, you're going to see will become, I don't think you're going to see everybody going back into the office. So being able to manage the technology, I think is going to be an important skill to have.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carol. And we also have Professor John Szivos.
Hi. So I think I was one of the first to teach online at the Mount back in '94 or '95. And I've been doing that for quite a while. I'm also a full-time professor at a substance university now. We're not a college anymore. I don't know, I find online exciting, but it's a lot of work. And I'm sure it's a lot of work for the student and a lot of work for the faculty member. And it takes quite a bit of discipline. Every time I walk by my computer, like, oh God, I know there's gonna be 30 emails or papers I have to read in there. And, I think we all kind of find our way through the technology. It's not really that difficult as we get used to it. Unfortunately for me, I've worked on a few platforms from Blackboard to Canvas to Brightspace to Moodle. It's like, wow, I wish there was only one. But it's not that overwhelming. And I think if we're patient with ourselves and the courses are organized, we kind of get through it.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for joining us today. So first I want to take a little poll. At the bottom of your screen, if you are using Zoom on a computer, you're going to see these fun little things that are reactions. And I want you to kind of think about the last 2 weeks or so as you've been doing online classes and kind of pick the reaction that fits best. You know, is it going really well? Is it going like, okay, maybe we use the thumbs up. Are you loving online classes? We can use the heart emoji reaction. Are they a little bit more difficult than you expected? We can use the kind of like surprise face. So if you want to kind of engage with that. Okay, so we kind of saw like a little bit of a mix. It's online classes can be really rewarding and they can be also a little bit challenging. So today we're going to have some feedback from our faculty regarding some of the strategies and some of the things that they've learned and that they are looking for as they are working through their online classes. Professor Capozzi, would you start with what are some of the pros and cons of taking an online course?
Sure. And if I can begin with some kind of like just a fun little intro into how I also see what's going on, if that's okay. And we have so many variables, and that means different things happening at the same time that can be confusing. So we are adjusting to living in a new society with COVID rules. And that takes a lot of adjustment, not being in contact with people as much. Some people really need that stimulation. They don't have a lot of people at home. So you have them feeling all of the stress that has to do with COVID. We also have people comparing the past to the present. Online isn't my normal, which is in class. So it's like you're comparing. Say you were dumped by a boyfriend or girlfriend and you love this person and you can't think you're going to live without them, right? And then you meet someone new. If you're really stuck on the old way was the best, you're never going to see the new qualities with the new person and you're never going to get on with your life. So that's the same between being stuck in, this isn't how it was in the regular classroom. I can't adjust to this. It's a stuck mindset. You're not going to move forward. So it's important to look at that. And again, coming from psychology, sociology, it's important to take care of yourself. It's important hygiene. You know, just because no one's looking at you, take your shower, you know, make sure that you eat well, make sure that you're sleeping, and look for some of the perks that may have come from this because we're so used to looking at the negative, meaning that you have, you know, much more time that we call it asynchronous. So you don't have to have your commute in the morning. You don't have to have all your classes. Some have Zoom, but you have a lot more time to navigate what you're doing with your life, which can slow you down a little bit. I think some of the challenges that happens with online that I see in a lot of my classes is students who have difficulty, I think, with textbook reading. And a lot of textbooks are audio. Which is a big thing. The other thing is use your time management well. That's crucial during this time. I suggest all students take all their syllabi from all their courses and write down a due date in one place so that you know what is due and how much time it takes to do each assignment. Is one just a quick review? Is one takes 6 weeks? And mark that. The other thing is don't be intimidated. There's about 3 steps or 4 steps on how to submit an assignment in Blackboard, same with posting. Okay, I put up little modules in my course, how to submit a course in Blackboard, how to post online. If your teacher didn't, do not be afraid to correspond with them. Another huge thing, use your email. Your teachers are on a lot. They have office hours and on Zoom, their email, they'll be on that hour straight. So please make use of that. The other thing, and I really stress this, is do not panic. I had a student email me, I have to drop this other course from the SAC program because the teacher is using McGraw-Hill and I can't do that. And I said, okay, what do you have to do in McGraw-Hill? Read. Okay, where's the assignment? Well, the test is there. And I says, okay, email her the questions. You've taken a test on an online class. It's similar. The discussion post is back in Blackboard. Just don't panic and try to make sense of each course and the differences and similarities with it. And I think there's much more similarity. You know, I think a lot of teachers have used Blackboard for assignments here or there. So I think it's just basically a mindset of saying this is the new normal. And I have to be really disciplined with my time management, but I've got this. And I do have the support, just like as if I was in the classroom. It's just different now. You can request a Zoom, you can email. So please, you know, make use of your resources and don't panic.
Lara?
Oh, so same question, Sarah?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, you know, some of the pros of an online course are that you can, you have a little bit more flexibility in your schedule, right? So we're not, most of the online courses are not synchronous. So you can really kind of log into the course and do your work at your own time frame. So that can be a big advantage because you can do it at your own, when it fits your time schedule. I think some of the cons of it are you have to be pretty disciplined. I think you need to set up a schedule still. I think it can be difficult, or it can be easy to kind of keep putting things off and say, I have a lot of time to look at this, or I'll do this later this afternoon. So I think one of the big cons, at least that I see, is that students think they have more time than what they actually have, and they put things off. So I do think that because you're not forced into a schedule when the classes meet, that you have to kind of make your own schedule and then stick to that. So say every day I'm going to do this course and I'm going to log in and I'm going to see what the teacher's asking and asking us to do. I'm going to email the teacher if I have questions. So I do think you still kind of need to make a schedule and kind of stick to that schedule during the week, just like you would if you were, you know, coming to the campus and doing an in-person class.
Hi. Lisa?
I'm going to echo a lot of things that Professor Dowland just said. I think a pro is that for asynchronous courses, there's more flexibility. So if you have time to listen to recordings and do assignments at 2 a.m. in the morning when your house is quiet, that is an advantage. I think another pro is that if your instructor records lessons, you have that to play back. So it's not like something that you miss in class, like, oh, wait, what did they say? You've got it so that you can go back and you can re-listen to it over and over again. So that's a pro. I'm going to also mention a con being that time management. I think a lot of students forget that if we were in person, that they're going to have to spend several hours in the class as well as outside of the class. And a lot of times students see that open-ended schedule. And so a lot of other things get in the way. So making those schedules and sticking to them, I think is key. Another thing that I will say that I do miss being online rather than being in face-to-face is that I may not always be able to have those face-to-face connections, students making those connections, as well as a lot of the discussions and personal comments that we get that we can also have some discussions about. There are ways to do that online, and there's ways to connect. Like what we're doing with Zoom is a great way to do that. But I will say that sometimes I do kind of miss that interacting with students every day, and us having some of those great relationships and discussions.
Carol?
I'll keep mine brief because what everybody said, excuse me, I support. I'm going to go along with what Lisa going to segue. One of the things about being online is I call it the deer in the headlight. I can't see your face. So I don't know if you're having a problem out there. So I ask students to please email. The other thing is if you are having trouble with assignments, I would not sit out there 2 or 3 days. Okay, and I have students who do that. You need to reach out to your professors or your peers and get them to help you. Okay, and that's everybody else. I support what everybody else has said. Excuse me.
Thank you. John? Oh, you're muted. John, you're muted.
Yep, I'm muted, sorry.
Okay, thank you. No worries.
Read the syllabus. I think that's the most important thing. And that many of the student questions I get could have been answered if they would have just looked at the syllabus. So make sure you print that and you have it and you're checking it off. The most important thing as a student, I think, is developing a good study habit. And that really is about developing willpower. And the way willpower is done is by setting goals. And I think a lot of students come to college with just some very general goals that are very vague. That's not going to work. Yeah, sure, we all want to make $1 million and we all want to be famous. Who doesn't? But I think you have to have some very concrete ones. If it's to be a nurse, if it's to be a police officer, if it's to be a teacher, know that and then ask yourself, did I make the right effort today? And the right effort means exactly what everybody's been saying, checking frequently, taking a look at that. The other thing is get yourself a planner and write in it. In fact, I still do this. I learned this back when I was in grad school. Here's my, probably can't see it. This is my week. And I actually chart my goals for the week and how am I doing? Am I making it? It's like a dashboard in your car that's telling you, is it time for gas, or you got a fancy car, do your tires need air? How fast am I going? You need a dashboard to see where it is, because there's those days of drudgery that we have to be engaged and put things in, whether we're a student or a faculty member. So those are my 2 cents.
Thank you. John, would you start us off with what personal traits should an online student possess?
Well, I think it's, you got to be patient with yourself, and you're going to have that occasional bad day where nothing is going right. And you really need perseverance and persistence in just to keep going at it. The other one is, even though it's online, and I think a few people have mentioned this, it doesn't mean that you can't get to know your professors. I know when I was an undergraduate, I never wanted to bother my professors. I thought they were busy people or they were too different than me. And then I realized much later is that, as a graduate student, it took me that long to figure it out. And I wish I knew this when I was earlier in my career. They are your best network. They become your champions. They're kind of your academic mom and dad. They're going to help you. They're going to give you ideas of things you could touch, see, read, where you can get help, who knows, maybe where you get a job, and they're going to be your references. There's nothing worse than having a student write to me, and I had a class with you 7 years ago, I need a reference. I don't remember you, we never talked. But I have students that I've had for 20 years or more who still stay in touch, sometimes just a little note, just to catch up, got married, moved to North Carolina, great. And I will always be there for them, and they'll always be there for me. So I would say make sure, don't let the technology get in the way of developing relationships. Ask to talk to your professor. Just check in with them. Ask them how they think the course is going and how they think you're doing. Don't be shy.
Thank you. Carol, do you have that?
I'm not sure I'd add anything else but what John has to say. I think he's got it covered.
Lisa?
I would say time management, definitely. As John was saying, make those goals, make a planner so that you stay on top of things, because I find nothing makes me more anxious than if I feel like time is running away from me. And I'm going to echo the communication as well. I do want to mention one thing about communication though. Email is a great way to communicate, and I'm on email a lot, and I always tell my students, whether we're face-to-face or whether we're online, to email me. Your instructor doesn't know that you're struggling with something unless you can give them that feedback. The one thing that I do want to say about email is that just remember to use your Mount email. If, Bubbly 49 loves the Red Sox comes on my computer, I have no idea who they are. So just make sure that you're using your Mount email, that you are saying your name as well as your class as well, because many of the instructors have many students in many classes. And so that's just another way that we can get to know you and communicating all of those issues. And even if it's just something like, you know what, I really like this assignment because it, you know, I was able to get this out.
Thank you, Lisa. Lara?
Yeah, so I would say you have to be pretty self-motivated and pretty disciplined. So, you know, you have to have the motivation to go in and maybe do things that the instructor posts that maybe aren't graded, right? Like worksheets, or I don't know, I post a lot of worksheets and a lot of extra stuff. I put out a lot of questions and I say, get back to me. I'd love to hear from you. So I think you have to be pretty self-motivated to actually do those things, because there are things that I would typically do with my students when we're face-to-face, and it gives me some idea of how well you're doing. But if you, when we're not face-to-face in person, I put those out there for you to learn like I would do them in class. But if you don't do them, if you're not self-motivated to actually do the work yourself, then you're not going to succeed as well. So I think you have to be really pretty disciplined and just put the effort in.
Julie?
Yeah, I agree with everyone. And from listening to everyone, I think I would say, how do you define being self-motivated? And if you are a person who can take that on yourself with your work schedule, your kids, a lot of people are teaching their kids now at home, a lot of different things happen. And if you can have time and be able to do that when your house is quiet, that's great. If not, I think the biggest thing that people get in the classroom that's the difference online is reading the textbook. I know sometimes people would come to class and they should be reading the textbook and they try to skip that and just get what they can from class. So what Lara said, you know, there are PowerPoints, there are lots of resources to use. I would also say, if you are having trouble being self-motivated, use the time that you were supposed to be in class as the time that you're reading, and plan on extra for the assignments as you would, because you couldn't do your assignments when you were in class. You're going to need that time to read. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck online. They don't prepare for the reading. They prepare for the assignment and submission, but you need to read. You need that time, 3 to 5 hours, you know, to really get that reading down that you would have in class. So I would add that.
Thank you. That kind of leads us into our next question. How much time should a student allot each week for an online course? Julie.
Very similar to when you are in class, except for the reading part, I think is even more crucial because you always had to do assignments, you always had to submit your assignments, you always had to work on homework and preparing. So the difference that you have now is someone isn't regurgitating everything to you or adding things. You have to be self-motivated to do that. So depending on how big the chapter is, it could be, you know, class time, which is about close to 3 hours that you had to read that. For some people, there are ebooks. Take advantage of that if you have a hard time reading it, or break it down. So you're not just saying, I'm reading the chapter today, when you know that your attention span is 20 minutes. Say, I'm going to read half of chapter 1 and keep that goal. And put it into the time frame that you can. But I would say that is the biggest thing, other than what's required in class, is that self-motivation of looking at the PowerPoints, the resources, and the reading.
Perfect, thank you. Lara?
Yeah, so typically when we're in face-to-face, we tell our students in the science classes that for every hour of class, in class, you've got about 3 or 4 hours outside of class. So for a 4-credit lab science class, that would mean about 12 hours a week outside of your class time. So now that we're not face-to-face, you kind of have to add the 4 hours outside of the class. So, you know, you're looking at like, you know, 16 or more hours a week for the class that now that it's online, for a science class or a 4-credit class at least.
Lisa?
Yeah, I agree with making sure that you're accounting for the time that you would be in class as well as the amount of time studying outside of class. I would say that sometimes there's a myth that students have that an online class maybe has less information than would be included in face-to-face. Maybe it's less work when it's online rather than being in person. And I think that's really a myth. And sometimes with online, at least I know it's true for instructors, we are spending a lot more time. So you kind of have to account for that. It's not going to be less time just because it's online.
Absolutely. John?
Oh, I think you missed Carol.
Oh, Carol, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll just add one other comment. One thing I found is that I do put in my syllabus, you know, basically 1 to 3 hours depending on the topic. I've also found some instances where, depending on the material, sometimes students have to spend more time than the average. And it's just the material in one topic may be more difficult. Another student may get by with 20 minutes. So part of it is, you know, the professor can guide, but sometimes the student just needs to assess how much time they need to get the work done. I'll say one other thing about the time allocated that I put into my syllabus is I do allow late submittals, up to 3 days with point deduction. I've gone in that direction because that way at least students will submit, get some credit. And it does allow for, you know, if time management doesn't work out that day, or, you know, my child had to go into the hospital type of thing. So I think part of this is the student needs to decide how much time they need to succeed with the guidance, what we're providing to you.
John?
Okay. So I think one thing we have to understand is really about learning and getting an education. You're really in the process of transformation. And what you're transforming is your neurology. And I think I was in China once and doing a lecture at a university, and they called the lecture hall the Hall of Mental Cultivation. That's a great name, because you really are trying to learn something and trying to change the brain. Like when you tried to learn to read when you were little, really takes time. And what I would say is, you know, there's something called a Carnegie unit, and Carnegie is this group that studies how long it should be. And they go anywhere from, much like Laura said, how many hours outside of class you should be putting in. So probably in a 3-credit course, you're looking anywhere from 6 to 9 hours, but what do you do in that 6 to 9 hours? Reading certainly is good, but make sure you're taking notes. It's just passive. If you're leaning on your bed and you're leaning back and you're kind of comfortable, it's going to, the tendency to be distracted is there. I would take notes, and on top of that, one thing I learned as a student, I think I'd learned it my sophomore year, I started writing questions. If I was giving a quiz or a test on this chapter, what would I ask? And then I would answer the questions, and I would actually put it away and the next day read my answers and honestly answer, how well did I know that? Not too good. Go back and do it again. And that's how you start to really progress. And that takes time. So don't just put in the hours and kind of passively laying back on your bed, looking at your book with your computer open and with the TV in the background. Make studying time kind of intense time, like going to the gym or exercising. You really have to make the most of it when you're at that period.
That's a really great point. Just like exercising and having, you might need to have some equipment. What type of equipment should a student have to be successful in online classes? John?
Well, of course, the computer. But here's one thing that's really important is make studying enjoyable. Like this is a room I'm working in. I'm, you know, fortunately, my family could afford to give me my own room with, you could see bookshelves and a really nice table. And I found out I don't like desks. They just get cluttered. I like tables. Make sure you have the right markers, pens, and pencils there. Make sure you have fresh water, a snack even. Don't try to, you know, do the night before the all-nighter thing. I found that you've got to chunk in times, and chunking means that. I find for me that my attention is about 37 minutes tops. And after 37 minutes, I take a 5-minute break. It might mean take the dog for a walk, get out of the room, do something. And then when the entire day is done, give yourself a reward. There's a really sad thing about education is nobody cares but you. And, you know, I've written a couple books. Right now I'm in the process of just finishing one. And if I tell my neighbors, like, oh yeah, that's nice. So I give myself rewards. It could be something small, from an hour of surfing the internet or watching some goofy series on Netflix, or going to the store and buying myself something I want. And don't buy anything big, don't get into financial trouble. But I think you have to make it's really about you, and you have to be excited, and you got to make the environment pleasant. I used to find music, if I put music on without words, it was good to break out noises. If it has words, I get distracted. But make the experience positive.
Thank you. Carol?
Okay, I would let's see, I would want to advise early if that was possible to see what each course requires. One of the problems we ran into in an Access course is, turns out Access can't download to a Macintosh. So having students sign up with the wrong equipment can be very upsetting. And I think along with equipment, and it's not really technology, but I would have a room set up where you can have the technology and it would work. The technology should also interface well with Blackboard, because that's the way we're doing things. And I think that's the basics of what you need. I would definitely, one of the things that I found was very successful for students was if you had everything lined up the day before class, your technology worked, you could upload to Blackboard, you could email, then you were ready to start on day one. And I find that students who start on day one are like you're coming to class the first day. And it really should look that way.
Thank you. Lisa?
I would say that about the technology, making sure that you've got computer, internet access, your textbooks, everything else that you would normally need in a class, as well. One of the things that I would say is that I know is difficult, and I'm seeing for my son, who is purely remote now through high school, is that you really kind of need a change of scenery. What John was saying about making sure that you're setting your environment is conducive to studying, but also to get up and kind of have a change as well. It's been really a struggle because he's spending all day in front of the computer at the desk doing his synchronous work, and then he's also in the same place doing his homework. So sometimes it's good to actually have that change of scenery, just to kind of change things up and make things feel fresh so that you get that break, so that when it does come time to read the textbook and study, that you've kind of got that fresh perspective with it.
Lara?
Yeah, so I guess, everybody's given really good things already. I guess I would say don't panic about technology. So, if the first couple weeks and maybe you couldn't figure out how to submit something on Blackboard on time, or your textbook didn't give you access when you needed it, don't panic about that stuff. We all are going through this, right? We're all trying to learn these technologies. Like, for example, the other day I had a Zoom session with one of my classes that I don't see. And I told them I would record them and I would post it so they could watch it. So the first week I remembered to record it. Last week we got into it, we're all talking, reviewing, and I got to the end and I had forgotten to record it. So now the students that weren't there couldn't watch it. But you know what? You got to forgive yourself. So I think this comes back to communication with your teacher. So, obviously, eventually you're going to have to figure out the technology pieces, but don't panic about them right away. Email your teacher, say, hey, my internet went down. I don't know how to scan this and send it to you. Where's that button that I pushed to submit it? We're more than willing to kind of reach out and help you figure out the technology. So.
Thank you. Julie?
Yeah, I, again, piggyback everything that everybody said. The one thing is to look through the syllabus, see what classes do have Zoom, or we have Ultra Collaborative that's very similar to Zoom built in the course. A teacher may have one or the other. The other thing is that you do have the Microsoft Word Suite available on iConnect, and I think a lot of students don't know that and panic if a teacher says I can't accept pages. Well, what do I do? It's very easy to use and download. I've done it myself. It's right on the iConnect, right under where you log in. You just open it and you have the whole suite for free. Really good deal. So just want to stress that too.
That's great. Following this presentation, I'm going to send you, the students, an email with some different technology options available here at the college. There's Internet Essentials, which is low-cost internet for students if you meet certain income requirements. There's also a number of different support programs that offer technology. So if you needed a laptop, in the Visions and RX programs, we have laptops that we can loan students. Also, the Dean of Students has purchased some Chromebooks as well, which will definitely support you in a pinch. What kind of computer skills would an online student need to possess, and what can students do now to improve their computer skills? Julie.
Okay, so I truly believe that it's not as different as people think, because you always had to type your assignments. You always needed to hand them in. So again, if your teacher doesn't give you how to submit an assignment in Blackboard, it's like 3 steps. Do not panic. So I'm thinking skills are similar. How you can improve is, again, I think your time management. And if you feel you need help in a specific area, don't be afraid to ask for it. Use your resources. Contact your teacher immediately if you don't understand where the test is or where an assignment is. And use your time management. Look at your calendar. Look at your dates. When is there a Zoom? When is there assignment? So you know what computer skills you need that day ahead of time.
Thank you. Lara?
Yeah, I guess I would agree with what Julie said. I think in general, you guys already have probably more computer skills than some of us do. But I think that you probably already have the computer skills that you need. You know, basic, most of you use, you know, Microsoft Word, and you know, a lot of those are how we would submit documents. Yeah, so I think you guys are pretty good. And obviously, again, it comes back to communication. If your instructor is asking you to turn something in or do something in a way that you're not sure, ask them how to do it. So for example, I had students submit handwritten things on Blackboard. And so I had to, you know, we found a free Adobe Scan app that you can download to your phone. You can snap pictures, it saves it as a PDF file on your phone, and then you can just submit the PDF file on Blackboard. So there are ways to figure out how to do little things if you're not sure how to do them. And again, just communicate with your instructor and they'll help you out for anything that might be a little unusual that you haven't done before.
Lisa?
I would say it's probably not as hard as you think it is, that you've already got a lot of those skills. I will say that I have learned a lot myself through YouTube. So thank goodness for YouTube. I have posted YouTube videos on how to submit assignments in Blackboard. So there's a wealth of information out there, as well as your fellow students also have some great information as well.
Carol?
Couple of things. Number one, I would tell my professor if I'm a first-time student online. Number two, sometimes what professors will do, and I do this, is I will give a practice quiz. It doesn't count, but it's just so that they know what to expect. And I will do a practice assignment with uploading, because I have found in the past that this confirms for me who needs a little bit of help. I don't think you need a lot of computer skills to be able to do an online class. It just depends on what the course requires. And again, the other one I would bring to your minds is possibly working with a tutoring center.
Absolutely. And John?
Well, there's a couple of things, and they're all great resources. I think Laura's right that you guys are the digital natives, and we kind of adapted this stuff later in our lives. You probably know as much, if not more, than we do. But I mean, think of what Sarah said before. If you're trying to do your homework on your smartphone, it's not going to work. Go borrow a Chromebook from the college. That's going to help you a lot. And a few other things I would really suggest is check your writing. You'll become a better writer if you write more often. And there's, you know, 2 things you probably know. One is Grammarly. That'll check your grammar, and it's not bad. It's a lot better than it used to be. The other one that I found is something called Natural Reader, and it will read back what you just typed in. And then sometimes just hearing it, you'll see, Jesus, that makes sense. You try to listen to that. But there are so many resources between the Advising Center, Tutoring Center, your TRIO program, Visions. And the other one that many of you forget is reference librarians are there to work with you. They are great. In fact, I still go and ask reference librarians when I'm looking for things. They're much better at finding things than most faculty are, because they know how it's cataloged. And they love working with students. It's a lot better than putting the books back on the shelf. And so don't be afraid to go see them. They're a wealth of information, and there's tremendous resources for you.
I think we have time for maybe like one more question for the panel, and then we'll open this up to students. Panel, so one of the shifts for many of our students is staying connected and having that communication that you would miss kind of in that online environment. What does communication and engagement look like in an online course? So this is kind of like a little bit of those last couple questions together. Like, is there interaction with other students online, and how does that occur? John, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, what I try to do, and I'm sure it's up to each faculty member what they do, I try to give discussion posts where you have to respond to 2 or 3 others, and some extra credits where they can do that as well. Actually, I think if anything I've learned in the COVID world is I probably have to do much more of it, give students the opportunity. I did try group projects. It's kind of tough in the Zoom world, but I think we're all getting a little better at that. That might help. You know, you get engaged. I think, you know, engagement is so much of the student's responsibility as well too. You know, and maybe even here's one suggestion, and I've done this in some classes, is why don't you start a study group? Ask other students in the class, do you want to study with me? And we can, you know, do it through Zoom, or you don't even have to use Zoom. You could just exchange your notes or something of that nature, and that might help quite a bit. So I think, again, you know, this is part of adulthood and it's part of college. Is some of the onus is on the student as well as faculty and staff.
Carol?
I'd add a little bit more. One is that in my courses, and it has been mentioned before, the Collaborate Ultrasound, students could go out without me being there because it's just open-ended. It just, you know, I set a date to open it. There's no close date. So they can make contact that way. I support what John's saying. Discussion board is another way. Email is another way. And I would reinforce that it's both of us. It's not just teacher, but it's students as well.
Thank you. Lisa?
I do Zoom classes, Zoom sessions with my classes. And also I would encourage you, make sure that you're going to office hours. I know that office hours are virtual now, but that is also a great way to make contact, to get your questions answered. And then email is also, you know, make sure that you are communicating. Your instructors don't know if you're struggling with something, and maybe can help you get in contact with other resources if you are communicating.
Lara?
Yeah, so one thing that came up in one of my classes the other day was one of the students in one of the Zoom sessions with me asked, you know, how can we create study groups between each other? So I went in on Blackboard and started a discussion thread so that they could post their name, their days and times that they're available. And then if everybody who wants to create a study group within that class goes in and answers, then you can kind of look at that as a student and pick out students who have the same time and schedule as you do. And then you can get a free Zoom account, and you've got up to 40 minutes to meet. Of course, there are other ways to do it virtually as well. But then someone could go in and sign up, and if you found 3 other people that have the same free time that week, then make a meeting and invite them to that meeting. And that's, I thought that was it wasn't my idea. It was one that we all came up with. But I thought that that was a really great way, especially on the discussion board, putting up your days and times and just throwing it out there and saying, hey, does anybody want to form a study group with me? And then if everybody responds with their days and times, and you have a place in Blackboard that you can always go and find when someone else is available. And you might find that you're going through other classes in the future semesters with some of the same students, and they become a support system for you. So it's really good to try to connect with other students in your class, and who knows, maybe you find them in another class later on in another semester. So.
Julie?
I agree with everybody. A couple of things to piggyback on Laura. If you don't have a discussion post group, there's email other students under the email, and you can do it that way also. When can we meet? Can do it in Ultra Collaborative or Zoom. I would say just look at your individual syllabus and see how your teacher makes the best communication. And looking through some of your other questions, so I can just tip in a little bit to that. If something goes wrong and something freezes, the main thing is immediacy. You don't want to contact your teacher a week later. Oh, you know what? Last week I got stuck in a test. Do it immediately. That way they have the evidence that you did it when the test was happening. You know, try to hit it again, try to see if you can unfreeze it. But the thing is immediacy when you have concerns. Do not wait. And I think that kind of falls through with all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'd like to open this up to our students. Do you have some questions? You're welcome to just unmute your mic, or you can put them in the chat. Panelists, do you have things that you'd like to add about online classes as students are thinking about their questions?
Can I add one? I'll piggyback on what Julie said. One of the things I do, because the technology, it will glitch, is when students submit assignments and or anything that's going to be assessed, what I ask them to do is it is their responsibility to confirm with me that things uploaded properly. I've had the case, and it is the case, that you can upload nothing as an assignment, and I'll open it up and there will be nothing there. And I want students to understand the expectation is that this is a partnership. And so if I open up the assignment, there's nothing there, there's nothing to grade. And I basically put that responsibility on the student. And, you know, I do get back to them and say, yep, I opened up your quiz, I opened up your assignment. Today where the student said, I'm not sure. I went in and I looked at it and I went back and I said, look, if you're uncomfortable, I'll reset your quiz. And the student opted to redo the quiz.
Questions for our faculty panelists? Yeah, Julie.
Well, I want to thank all of you students for listening all this time and not having a chance to say something. Is there one difficulty that stands out for you that you would just like a little support with? Either in the chat, you can write it, or, you know.
Yeah, I was just going to add, if you feel shy about talking in the group, you're welcome to add questions to the chat and I can ask them. So everybody's going to ace their online classes this semester? Hopefully, yes, at least one person.
I hope.
That's-
I hope. Yep.
Well, let me ask the folks that are here. Let me ask the students that are here. We all get to the point, middle of semester, towards the end, and there's that last push. What are you going to do when you're starting to feel like it's just really, really hard and I'm having trouble focusing? What are you going to do? Because you want to finish strong, as we say. Thank you for being honest.
How do the tests work out? Yes, ask for help. Yes, please.
Yes,
Does
so-
someone want to talk about tests and how tests are done online?
Yeah, so I think, you know, probably every instructor is gonna do them slightly differently on Blackboard. So, you know, you should get some direction from your teacher on how they're doing those exams on Blackboard. I know I put up I talk to my students about it ahead of time as well in emails and on Zooms and stuff, but when I post the exam on Blackboard, I put instructions and background so that when you click into that exam, before you start it, you see all those instructions like, you know, has to be finished in this time and blah, 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 all that stuff. So it's a little bit hard to answer because everybody might do it slightly differently. But again, you should get information from your instructor on how that's going to work. And if you're still not quite sure or comfortable, again, communicate, reach out and ask them, say, hey, I'm a little bit nervous about starting this exam on Blackboard. Can you tell me, you know, how I do it or what your expectations are?
Yeah, I want to comment on, I think, I'm hoping I'm saying, is it Paolo? I'm not sure I'm saying your name correctly, but I have,
Paola.
oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Support groups are huge. I have a medical assisting office class. There's over 20 students in that class, and it's a cycle class. And this is the first time putting it online. Support groups, having somebody to share when you're having good times or bad times, it's going to help both or the group together because usually everybody's not down at the same time. And on top of that, with all of life that we're all now dealing with, support group is huge. So that's a great idea.
I just like to just add that, like what everybody was saying, that each syllabus is different. So one teacher may combine 3 tests and have it open for a month. Another one might have weekly tests. So just don't assume that all tests are done the same, because that's really, really important to look at every syllabus. Some teachers have final projects instead of tests. So very important to really email your teacher on the specifics of anything that you have.
I would also say that that if you have accommodations, make sure that those are in place and the instructor knows about the accommodations as well. And if you have any questions, you can always contact the disabilities coordinator.
Yeah, the other thing is I ask students that at this point they should know their syllabus, but it's like, what I want you to do is you tell me what you think the due dates are and what's due, and I will confirm for you. But this is, you know, this is one of the ways we share the responsibility, so that they know when their due dates are for whatever is going to be assessed.
Other questions? I always like to give that space, like just in case like someone's like on the cusp of pressing enter. Kind of like thinking like, do I really want to ask this question? Yes, just press enter. We want to know what it is. But your faculty are here to support you. And I really want to thank our panelists today for taking time to join us, for speaking to the things that they are looking for in their online classes. Always reach out to your professors if you have questions. They are 100% here to support you. I've worked for MWCC for a while now, and I've always been so happy to see how supportive our faculty are of our students. So sometimes there's, I know as like first generation students, our students that we work with in our in TRIO, it can be a little overwhelming to kind of make that connection and do that outreach. But they are here to support you in so many ways, in every way that they can. So with that, again, thank you all for joining us. I want to be also mindful of our time. So you are all set. If you have questions, we'll be around for just a minute, but you are welcome to exit the meeting if you are interested, or stick around for some questions if you have like something that you want to ask, like kind of one-on-one. I will send a follow-up email.
I guess all I have to say is thank you for everyone who talked, and it was great to be here. Have a good day, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Manny, is there something we can help with? Do you have any questions?